Good morning, good day, and good evening. I'm, as always, your host, Brody Robertson, and today we have someone on who, I don't know if you've seen a lot of his videos, but I have a feeling a lot of you've seen one in particular. I can't say the word in the title because YouTube is weird about monetization, but the Unix customization Reddit subreddit will say from 2 years ago. That video just appeared out of nowhere. I thought it was a really good video. I actually had meant to reach out to you back when that came out, but I don't know, I must have completely forgot about it. And then 2 years later, here we are. So welcome to the show, Reluctant Anarchist. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing great.
Absolute pleasure to have you on here. You just showed up in my Discord out of nowhere. I was like, hey, that's the guy.
Yeah, I was trying to reach out to make I have an idea for a collaboration video. I want to make a special video when I ask talented Linux YouTubers what gear do they use. It's coming in September, I think, but no spoilers for today.
I don't want to ask who's in it, but how many people have you managed to get in it, if you can say that?
For today, 11 YouTubers said yes.
Okay. Have you actually got 11 videos, though?
Not yet.
Okay.
You were the first, actually.
Okay. Yeah, getting people not just to reply back, but to then continue replying back to get everything you need. A lot of people are busy in their lives. They forget about things.
Yeah,
they've got other projects going on, and yeah, it can be a bit of a
I
hassle
understand
sometimes.
that's totally understandable. I'm not expecting everyone to say yes. I just want to build a bridge between me and other Linux YouTubers because our community isn't that big. Linux community is pretty big, but not that big, and I want to have a connection. I want to build a connection between everyone to have a sort of platform where everyone can speak freely and open their minds. Yeah,
there's kind of a couple of different versions of the Linux community because there is the desktop space, and this is a fairly small group. There's not really that many people in it. If you go out into the server space, there's a lot more people talking about stuff like that.
Sure.
You have a lot more not channels maybe dedicated to it, but you have programming channels that would do occasional videos on it here and there. And then there's also a part of it that's the home automation side and data storage side. But these are all kind of adjacent. They're not really directly what you would consider. When most people think of Linux YouTube, the Linux community, you think of desktop Linux people.
Well, the thing is, when people have their first taste of Linux, some of them, actually most of them, kind of make Linux a sort of a personality trait. I began using Linux when I was 21 years old, and it immediately felt refreshing. It felt great, and I sort of was, if I'm using Linux, I think everyone would be happy to say that they are using Linux. Mm-hmm. So I think even though community isn't that big, I think even people who just use Linux for server work or who want to game on Linux, who want to edit videos on Linux, we all sort of connected. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And even I'm just editing videos on Linux and play video games, it's still interesting to listen to videos about some server stuff, about CentOS, Fedora, etc.
Mm-hmm. You make a good point there about people turning Linux into a personality trait.
Sure.
I've heard a lot of people bring this up as a reason why they get turned away from Linux. They feel especially some of the more extreme parts are kind of culty with it. They're you have to use my distro, you have to use this specific desktop, and I can see why some people see that and I don't really want to get involved with that, and if I do anything slightly wrong, is someone gonna get angry at me? I get why you'd be weirded out by that.
But really, who cares? I'm using Arch Linux with GNOME desktop, with vanilla GNOME. Who cares what I'm using? I'm using whatever I prefer, and it works.
I think where the issue comes is when you're new to Linux and you don't really know what's out there, it can be kind of confusing because everyone's going to say the thing that they're using is the best. It's Arch with Hyperland is the best. Fedora with KDE is the best. Ubuntu with, maybe most people don't say Ubuntu with GNOME is the best. I don't know. But that was a joke, obviously. It can be hard when you're new and you don't really know what different distros offer, what different desktops offer, to know who is saying the thing that's going to make sense for what you're trying to do.
True. I've recommended Linux to a couple of my friends, and in my so the rule of thumb is to recommend first something like Linux Mint or Pop! OS, and if people say, "Well, that looks great. What can I try? Or what else can I try?" Then I recommend something like Arch Linux or Fedora, because people who never used Linux before, they had to use some sort of a third wheel, bicycle with a third wheel, because Linux sometimes can be too unfriendly, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think people like to overthink the beginner distros. Like, oh, should it be this?
Arch Linux with Hyperland.
Yeah. I did Arch Linux with i3 as my first distro. You can do it. But I also was in, like, I had a programming background at that point. Like, I was used to reading documentation. So for me, it was acceptable.
I want to say you have to be a spirited man. You have to have a lot of motivation to do that.
Well, my motivation was I swapped at the start of a university semester, so I had to work out very, very quickly what I was doing. But before I'd swapped, I'd probably watched like 6 months of videos on like how Linux works, how all these applications work, like what applications to use. So for me, even though it was a sudden swap to Arch, I'd effectively done the distro hopping thing, but like outsourcing the distro hopping to like people on YouTube. So it wasn't like, I go from nothing to Arch. Like that would be a bit different of a swap then.
Sure, but nevertheless, you have to try install it for the first time by yourself. That's different than looking on YouTube and having some sort of a brief overview.
Yeah,
that's interesting because the first distro that I've installed myself was Ubuntu, Ubuntu 8. I brought the CD here. Yeah, it's the Ubuntu CD that people gave to each other back in the days in the like 20 years ago, I think. The thing is, ever since I was a kid, I was a PC enthusiast. My father bought his first PC when I was 3 years old. A couple of years later, he showed me how to install Windows. The first OS that I've installed was Windows. I think it was Windows Millennium. Then my older brother taught me how to build my first PC, and he has a friend who was back at that day Linux enthusiast, and he gave us that Ubuntu CD. Back in that day, I was a PC enthusiast, but I was not a OS enthusiast. I didn't care what OS I use. I was more interested in video games, in video editing, and all sorts of stuff. But so when we installed Ubuntu for the first time, I was like, well, I can't play video games. I can't use my video editor. GIMP looks weird. We're going to reinstall Windows 7 back again, or Windows XP it was, I don't remember. But then in 2014, I've heard about SteamOS. I was intrigued by it. Back in the day, I had AMD, full AMD desktop, and I've installed it. It was a rough experience. I had poor performance in many video games, even with AMD GPUs, and I forgot about it. But in 2016, I applied to a master's degree in university, and I had to buy a new laptop. I was on extreme budget, and I bought like extremely cheap Asus laptop with 2 or 4 gigs of RAM, and it came with Windows 10 pre-installed, and it was a horrible experience. I had like sorts of ads popping out from everywhere, third-party apps pre-installed. And when I tried to install Windows 7 on it, most of the drivers didn't work. So even if I would install them manually, they still didn't work. So I had to try Linux. I've heard about Linux a lot by that day, so I decided to give it a try and installed Ubuntu, and it worked. It worked magically great. It worked fine. I had everything working out of the box, and I was like, yeah, that's great. Why I still use Windows on my main PC? And then I got into Linux. I tried distro hopping on that old laptop. I tried Linux Mint, I tried Pop! OS, and I tried Fedora. And then I've decided to install Linux on my main PC. I started with Pop! OS and then transitioned to Arch, because Pop! OS is great, but sometimes it feels kind of, I don't know how to say it, old Pop! OS felt a little bit sluggish, stutterish, I don't know. So Arch is my final destination. I think I'm using Arch for 2 or 3 years now, as on my main desktop PC, on my main production PC, and it works great.
It's funny that you mentioned Windows ME before. Let me grab something funny.
Yeah.
I've shown this
Yeah.
before, so anyone who's seen it before is gonna be sick of it. But here we have a book, a very important book. This is flipped on the capture that I'm seeing on my side, but this is the complete.
No, it looks great. Yeah.
No, on my Discord's weird.
Mm-hmm.
It shows me a flipped version, but it shows you it correctly.
Yeah. It did. It does.
For anyone who can't read backwards, this is the complete idiot's guide to Windows ME. It is everything, every possible thing you could need to know about Windows ME. I paid $5 for that.
It's funny because back in, I think, 20 years ago, every book about computers started with the idiot's guide. I'm Russian. In Russia, every book started with the title for для чайников, means for kettles, for dummies. Windows for dummies, Linux for dummies, and etc.
Hey, it's glad I'm happy to see that even just that little thing is a cross-cultural thing. Like, yeah, you know what?
It's extremely common.
You have no idea what you're doing with a computer. Just here's a thing. I'm just
but that's part of mentality. That's a part of mentality because when you see a computer for the first time, you're thinking about yourself like, oh, I can't do that. Linux is too hard for me. I'm not ready to install Windows. I'm a dummy myself. So the books 20 years ago, they did the great job by saying, hey, I know that you think about yourself in a very bad terms, but here you are. Here's your first step that you can do. That's actually great.
So right now you are on Arch, and you've been on there for 3 years. So you were saying before you're on vanilla GNOME.
Yeah, I'm using vanilla GNOME with probably 2 or 3 extensions to blur my background and to change the color of the top bar, but other experience is pretty much vanilla.
Okay. So what is the vanilla GNOME experience like? Because a lot of people, I've used it a little bit in like virtual machines, right? I've maybe used it for like a couple of hours, but that was like a couple of years back. A lot of people say they rely on extensions like, dash to dock and things like that.
Yeah. Well, the experience really depends because the experience is pretty smooth, but except that you have some minor inconveniences, minor problems happening from time to time. And the biggest problem with that minor inconvenience is that you can't really tell what's causing them. I mean, you have a new update, you have a little bit sort of stutter happening when you press super key on your keyboard, and you have to pinpoint what causes it, because it might be a part of GNOME, it might be caused by a problematic extension, it might be caused by the AMD GPU, it might be caused by whatever, or it might be caused by NVIDIA drivers. So my rule of thumb, I have to wait for a week. If the problem disappears by itself, it means that it was part of a new update. It was a problem caused by the new update, and if it doesn't go away, I try to disable my extensions manually, and usually it works. But otherwise, usually 9 times out of 10. But otherwise, it works great. Again, I'm using it as my main production machine, and it works really great.
What drew you to GNOME?
I'm sorry?
What like brought you to GNOME? What appealed to you?
Well, when people argue what's better, Hyperland or KDE or GNOME, they often have some sort of arguments like, oh, KDE is 20% faster, or Hyperland allows you to tile things. It's not about me. I use GNOME because I really like the way it looks. I just like the aesthetics of GNOME. I just like the minimal, blank look of it. It's really minimal. You only have a top bar and that's it. So I kind of like that. I kind of like that it looks different from Windows. It was part of the, I think it's part of that personality trait that we talked about before, because when I think about operating systems, when I think about Windows, it sounds familiar to me, but the minimal look of GNOME, the way GNOME looks, it looks a bit alien to me, you know.
So it makes it like a clearly different thing in your mind.
Yeah, and that's why I like it.
Right. I have heard that as like one of the reasons not to recommend something like Cinnamon or like Zorin OS, things like that, because they're very similar looking to Windows. So you might fall into traps of thinking that it is Windows and trying to do things in a Windows way.
Yeah, but that's it works. It works both two ways. I mean, when I recommend Linux Mint to my friends, I recommend it to them because I know that they will be able to find a way around it.
Right.
Because if you use the vanilla GNOME and Tweak's application isn't installed, you have no way to change the keyboard layout to switch languages.
What?
So in GNOME settings, there is no option to change a shortcut to switch language. You cannot change the shortcut to switch languages, to switch inputs without GNOME Tweak's utility.
Okay, GNOME. Sure.
So when you recommend the vanilla GNOME to your friend and he's asking how to switch an input layout, you have to, by default, you have to press super plus space to switch languages, and everyone is used to Alt Shift. So
right.
when you recommend vanilla GNOME to people and they say how can I change the layout, I say you have to install a separate utility to change it. And they were like, what? Why it acting so weird? Yeah, but that's what we have for today.
I haven't messed around with input layout stuff in a little bit. I had it working back on X11, but not working. Oh, but I haven't set it up on Wayland.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. I used. I think that the key I think I had used super space when I was using
super space. Yeah.
I think that was the default in FCITX. That's dumb. That's really dumb.
Many people come from Windows. On Windows, the default option is Alt plus Shift, and people expect Alt plus Shift to work on Linux, but it doesn't. And if you're using Wayland, GNOME and Wayland still acts a little bit weird. So the little icon that shows you the current language layout, it still shows it doesn't switch when you press Alt Shift on Linux. If you set it on the Tweak menu, on the GNOME Tweaks menu, but it's fine because I understand that I don't want to bash GNOME developers for little bugs because they are doing a great job. They made a desktop environment that looks great, that works fine. It works actually great, but some things should be ironed out to make it even more popular, and I'm grateful to them. I'm grateful to what they were able to achieve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, GNOME is in this position where it's been the default on a lot of distros for a very long time because a big part of the reason is KDE's just been... Firstly, it's been very difficult to package. Like, KDE has a lot of individual packages, whereas GNOME has a lot more of the big blocks of everything. Also, the KDE release cycle's just not existed. Like, there's just not been a release cycle for KDE. Whereas GNOME has that 6-month release cycle that, is perfect for things like Ubuntu and Fedora. And KDE is trying to resolve that. And I hope that as they do that, as they get these issues ironed out, more distros at least consider it as an option. Because also KDE had an issue where, like, this is the other part of the release model where I think it was the applications and the libraries were on a different release schedule. So you would have an updated version of the apps, but the libraries would then need to be updated with like a minor release afterwards to make sure everything's up to date properly.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare.
Well, the other problem with KDE that it looks, no offense, but it looks like it was designed by programmers. I mean, you have to really tweak it to make it look really great. The default KDE experience is not my cup of tea.
The other problem with KDE is, my understanding is there is like 4 different styling engines being used in the current version of KDE. There was a talk that happened at Academy last weekend. If you can find it in the 40 hours of footage without timestamps. I think it's called Union, the Future of Styling on KDE, where what they're basically trying to do is create a central point of truth for their styling engine, and basically all the KDE apps are just going to pull from this, which obviously short term is going to be an issue, but like long term, once all of the apps are ironed out, once all the apps are ported, it's effectively going to be like libadwaita, but KDE also keeping a lot more of the customization that you expect from KDE. Also, it should...
Yeah, that would be great.
It should alleviate some of the issues where you have certain KDE apps that are respecting styling, but other ones that are not. If everything's pulling from the same thing, it should be easier then.
Yeah.
Should be.
But there is one thing that I like about KDE that doesn't... there is no such thing on GNOME is global menu. I love the way the global menu looks. I love the way global menu works, and the GNOME has this top bar that is mostly empty, and I would be extremely happy to see the global menu on it. I think it's not coming on GNOME, but nevertheless, and KDE has the global menu, and it looks great. It works great also.
There have been extensions to do global menus over the years, but I don't think there's an extension...
No, not yet.
Right now.
It doesn't work today. Yeah, it's not working properly, and most applications doesn't support it. You just have the blank page.
Yeah, that's the problem. You can make an extension, but you then need apps that are exporting the menus so they can be populating it. Because I think the extensions would work with some of the older GNOME apps, and like the during GTK 3, I believe they work just fine. And if you're running like some KDE apps, but the modern GNOME stuff, I don't believe exports stuff to work like that anyway, so you can't do it really.
Sure, yeah, and the GTK 3 apps, some of them have menu on top of it already, so it will display two menus, which looks weird.
Yeah. Do you have experience using macOS? Because I've never... I've used macOS No, you just like global menus.
I've never used macOS before. I didn't had a MacBook in my entire life. But I kind of admit that I like the way it looks. I kind of like the way of global menu on Mac.
Yeah, I used Mac during... I want to say Snow Leopard. So it's been a little bit now, like maybe like 10 or so years, maybe even longer. I never even really thought about the global menu. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like it's just something that's just there on Mac, and every app just supports it. So it's kind of just it kind of just is just how Mac works. But
yeah,
I don't know. I never really missed it when I left, because I'd used Windows for most of my life before that anyway.
Yeah, and Apple has the authority to force developers to support global menus. But on Linux, especially on GNOME, we don't even have the window top bars by default.
Yeah, that's a problem.
But again, that's fine. That's completely fine. I mean, yeah, that's a problem, but that's fine because it's a free system. It's developed mostly by enthusiasts, so I kind of like the way that we got here. To this glorious desktop that looks extremely great, extremely pleasant.
I'll give you fine. I do have issues with it. I do have like my biggest issue with it is the fact that you can't force developers to support this. Like devs are the only reason that GNOME doesn't look entirely broken is having some sort of fallback there is just a sensible thing to have in a toolkit just in case something breaks. If the toolkits didn't have client-side decorations as a fallback, like it would be a much worse state. And you see this in cases where apps use like custom versions of toolkits, like in DaVinci, where it just doesn't render any bar at all. You can't do anything with the app.
Yeah, but that's surprisingly KDE looks extremely fine and looked extremely fine.
Yeah, they have a fallback for it.
I mean, I mean that despite the DaVinci Resolve doesn't use a custom decoration, it still looks it still looks right on GNOME. When you maximize the window, it looks amazing.
As long as it's maximized, just don't unmaximize it.
Yeah. But it's a video editor. You don't want to unmaximize it anyway.
I don't know. If you're using like a ultra wide, you might not want it to be taking up the entire screen.
Yeah, that's the case. But I have a 32-inch monitor sitting in front of me, and anyway, I have to maximize it because when I edit in my YouTube shorts, it's just too tall to not be maximized. Yeah.
Right. You have a 32-inch monitor.
Yeah.
That's
it actually works great. I am a single monitor setup guy. I use only one monitor. I love to doesn't support tiling to say, but you can drag windows to the left side, to the right side.
Window snapping.
It works great. Yeah. Window snapping works great, and it's fine for me.
Why the one monitor? I don't know anyone who goes out of their way to just use one.
I use NVIDIA GPU, and multi-monitor setup doesn't work.
What? Okay, this is a new issue I've not heard with NVIDIA. Explain the issue with multi-monitor.
I use NVIDIA GPU. I use X11. I still use X11 because Wayland still have some weird issues happening from time to time. And because of that, when I enable multi-monitor setup and I plug different monitor with different resolution, it works weird. I cannot set different multipliers to different monitors. So let's say the basic monitor isn't maximized at all, but second monitor, which is full HD, should be maximized to 20%,
right.
150%. And GNOME on X11 can't do that. You have to maximize them to the same settings.
Right. Okay. Scaling is broken. Right. That makes sense.
Yeah, scaling is broken, and for some reason, when I plug 2 or more monitors, VSync disappears entirely.
Yep. That's a general X11 problem. That's not a GNOME problem.
When I was using Windows like 4 or 6 years ago, I was using multi-monitor setup, but nowadays it's just it. It's just one single monitor setup, which works fine for me. It's a 32-inch monitor, so I have plenty of space to do all my stuff.
Yeah, the VSync thing. Yeah, it's one of the issues that one of the reasons why I'm not on Xorg at this point. It's a long known issue that FreeSync or any other sort of VSync as well. Like a lot of mixed refresh rates on some configurations don't work. It's Xorg. Xorg. Let me explain something. Xorg was written in. It's based off of x86, so it's written in like the 90s. And most of the big changes for Xorg stopped around 2006, 2007. Now, in 2006, 2007, FreeSync didn't exist. High refresh rate monitors didn't exist. A bunch of the things we use now did not exist. It turns out, if you have a system that's designed before these things exist, sometimes things don't work in ways you would expect them to.
I'm sorry, there's something with the connection.
Oh.
Well, I can see you right now. I've heard most of the part about Xorg, but can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
You froze for a second on my side. I wasn't sure what was happening there.
Yeah, that's great. That's fine. Maybe it wasn't on my side. Yeah, Xorg is weird, but Wayland isn't ready yet.
Yeah,
to me,
certainly
my taste.
Issues.
Yeah, I would be happily wait for another 6 months or 12 months before switching to it completely. I'm excited to switch to Wayland completely. I think I use Wayland on my Steam Deck. Along with the GameScope. Yeah, it uses GameScope.
Yeah, GameScope's Wayland. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. But when you have to switch to the desktop mode, it switches to Wayland, I think.
I think desktop mode's X11.
Sure. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. I'm actually not certain myself.
I think it switches to Wayland to support desktop mode, all sorts of applications in desktop mode. But Steam Deck is based on AMD system on chip. So
full screen game. So yeah, the Steam Deck gaming mode, that's Wayland. The desktop mode is X11, but it will be changing to Wayland.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's at least what I'm reading here. I'm not. It's not like from
maybe
a Valve source.
Someone will correct us in the comments. Yeah. Yeah, but on my main desktop PC, Wayland isn't ready. I will be happy to switch to it, but not yet. I'm still using X11 in 2024, and there is a meme that next year is going to be the year of Linux desktop, and here I am in 2024 using X11 on my main production machine.
What issues do you still have with Wayland at this point? I know there's been NVIDIA issues up until fairly recent drivers. I don't know if you still have NVIDIA issues or... I
didn't try the Wayland after switching to the new drivers. I didn't try the Wayland yet, but back in the day, it was all sorts of issues. It was weird graphical artifacts. I wasn't able... When I first tried Wayland, I wasn't able to switch resolution higher than, I think, 4:3. There were no 16:9 support. Yeah, it was weird, but again, I don't want to criticize Wayland developers because they are doing their work not for free, but they're doing the work because they wanted to. They wanted to do, and I feel only gratitude to them, and I'm waiting for the final release. Not final, but stable release. Let's say.
So right now, like, what issues still exist for your system? Obviously, those were the old issues, but what are you still not resolved?
Well, on Wayland or on X11?
On Wayland. Yeah, what issues does Wayland still have for you?
I think I need to try it because I didn't try it since the 555 drivers came in. Yeah, I need to try it to say properly what issues do I have, and yeah, I think I should make a video about it.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like it's worth a video, especially if you weren't sure on it. Look, if it works great now, hey, that's definitely worth a video. If it's still terrible, hey, that's worth a video as well. You can say like, here's...
Yeah, I've been using Wayland on my second laptop, on my studio laptop, and studio laptop has AMD GPU baked inside. No, not baked inside. It has NVIDIA AMD APU, and Wayland on it works great. Gestures works great, but I still have some minor GNOME bugs, like when you press Alt plus Shift combination, there is no the language icon doesn't switch, but that's really minor.
Yeah, if it's switching the keyboard but not switching the icon, like you're still getting the functionality.
It's switching keyboard. Yeah, I'm still getting the full functionality, but the icon that visualizes the change that doesn't switch from English to Russian, and vice versa.
That makes sense. Yeah, that is a fairly minor change.
Yeah, and the thing is, when you press super plus space, it changes.
Okay, so it's probably an issue with how GNOME Tweaks is handling it, or what GNOME is exposing for it to change it?
Yeah, it problems with GNOME Tweaks, and the fact that GNOME relies on GNOME Tweaks to make a desktop actually working, it's still weird.
Yeah, the whole GNOME Tweaks thing is so weird to me. Like,
yeah, it should be included in the base settings. Yeah,
I've said this before, but I really wish that GNOME looked... I know GNOME has, like, a vision for their desktop. That's totally fine, right? But I really wish GNOME looked at, like, what popular things people were doing. And if you have 1 million downloads on Dash to Dock, for example... Actually, you know, I'm going to check the number. It's probably more than that. Dash to Dock...
I think it's more.
Yeah, it's probably way more. GNOME... that has a lot more. 8.2 million downloads. If you have extensions if you have extensions like this, it doesn't make any sense to me that it wouldn't be in your base set. And same with like GNOME Tweaks. Like if you have things like this,
change layout and broke the extension and break the extension. That's nonsense you're talking about.
Or like, and just any of these basic things, like if they exist and they're so popular, it just doesn't make sense to me that it's not part of the core set.
Yeah. Well, that's true. That's true because if people like to use Dash to Dock or they like to use other extensions, it means that they dislike the choice that was made by GNOME developers. And for example, in the vanilla GNOME, when you press super key, overview window is just like one color. It's like single color, single dark gray color that kind of pushes at you.
Oh, we have another issue. I think it froze. Did we lose him? I think we might have lost him. Or I disconnected? It says I'm connect. Wait. Is that my side that's having an issue? It says it's connected here. I'm going to stop the recording for a moment. We'll cut back to this. Okay. The recording is going once again. I don't remember what you were talking about.
Yeah, I was talking about extensions. I was talking about that by default on GNOME, when you press super key, you have the overview window, and overview window by default is just single color, dark gray color. It's quite daunting to look at. And when you have a beautiful wallpaper, when you have like some sort of mountain wallpaper or landscape wallpaper, you want to have this wallpaper blurred in the background. So that's blur my background is quite a popular extension in GNOME.
Oh, is that what that one does? I hear people talk about that extension, but I've never actually used it. It makes GNOME way more beautiful than it is by default. And still, it's not included in the default settings. I understand that GNOME developers have their own vision. I respect them for their vision, but I need some extensions to make my desktop even more fancier for myself. I thought it was 23 million downloads. No, 2.3 million.
23 millions.
No,
23 millions.
No, 2.3. I read the number wrong.
That's still a lot. That's a lot. 2 million people. 2 million. No, not 2 million people, but 2 million downloads. That's a lot.
On the GNOME website, it doesn't separate the number. It's just that there's no commas or dots between it, so it's just all the numbers in a line. That was my bad. But yeah, no, 2.3 is a lot. You have to count zeros.
Exactly. That's a lot, and that's what people want to see in their desktops. I understand. Well, there is one point to make that GNOME is a default DE because it comes with a lot of server distros. And server distros needs to be as lightweight as possible. I believe that's why they disabled it by default. So if you want to have an extra fancy settings, you will enable it by yourself. But still, I am a desktop Linux user. I want my desktop to be as fancy as possible.
No, I definitely agree. It does make okay. I can understand not including some of the extensions. But a lot of the stuff I'm seeing in here. Yeah, a lot of the stuff I'm seeing in here are things that are kind of just sensible, like customizing a clock on the lock screen, or add a category-based menu for applications, so you can have...
application menu is wild. By default, application menu looks extremely weird. I mean, if you have apps pinned to your dash, it disappears from the application menu by default.
Okay.
So if you decided to open overview settings to find something that you forgot that you put in the dashboard or to your dock, you will not be able to find it by default. That's weird. That's not how, let's say, if you come in from Windows, that's not how the pin to the taskbar works. You can pin your app to your startup, but you can still search it manually in your start menu. But on GNOME it works differently, and it's fine, but it's not user friendly when it comes to beginners.
What do you think is the most download? So I had it on popularity, not downloads. What do you think is the most downloaded GNOME extension? Because it's probably not going to be something you expect.
Is it something? Is it a not? My guess is that it disables overview window when you launch your PC.
Disable overview. Disable overview window when you...
Yeah, on GNOME, previously, when you launch your PC, you have not your desktop screen, but your overview screen.
Oh, I didn't know that. No, that's not what it is.
I think disable overview is enabled by default on Arch. Arch comes with vanilla GNOME, but it also has a couple of extensions pre-installed.
Right. What I'll say is Dash to Dock is in second place. There is something more popular than Dash
and
to
what's
Dock.
the first? And what is it?
It is something called Argos.
What's that?
Exactly. That's what I thought. So I'll send you the link to it. So it's an extension for basically creating like little menus in the GNOME launcher or the GNOME panel. This has, what is that? 13.8 million downloads.
Yeah,
I have never heard of this extension.
I've never heard of that too.
Like,
that's weird.
How is this the most popular? If anyone's watching this section, do you know about who is downloading this? I've never heard of this.
Tell us in the comments, please. Yeah, I've never heard about that, but the thing that I love GNOME because it's minimal. I love GNOME because it's sort of empty. It has nothing in the desktop. It has no desktop icons. It has not that many things in a menu bar on top. So I've never used that. I've never had the need to add the application to my top bar. But on the Ubuntu, I think you have the ability to add software to your top bar, like Steam does. Steam adds itself when you have Steam. When Steam is launched, you can access it via the little icon on the.
Oh
right
yeah, it has an
top
app
corner.
tree. Yeah. Yeah, the whole app tree thing is actually, what number is that on the list? That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That is 10th place. Adding Ubuntu has a implementation of the app tray they specifically use for Ubuntu. That is the 10th most downloaded extension. App trays are a weird one. Like, I understand why GNOME has an issue with them because
yeah, it requires app to support it in the first place.
Also, that area was never supposed to be like a area for applications. What it was supposed to be is for like temporary notifications, but developers like Discord, for example, they just add an icon there, or Steam, they just add an icon there, where it doesn't really, like, if that icon wasn't there, nothing would really change. Like, the app would just work the exact same way.
Yeah, well, I think if there is a malicious application that can cause troubles, and it will be creating icons to mimic settings or other GNOME menus, it can be dangerous for newcomers. It can be dangerous to use that application. I understand why they disable it, but the fact that this is a 10th popular extension on the GNOME website says a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of people relies on it.
The only one in here that I understand not wanting to add is user themes, because they just don't want to have theming. Like, that's understandable that you would not do that one.
Yeah. Well, the default Adwaita looks fine. It looks, I would say, great, but for most people it's fine, because if you have light theme, it's just blank white. If everything is white out there, well, it looks great. But the problem with GTK4 is that GTK3 apps, they are not white. They are sort of beige, light gray, light brown color. And when you have beautiful GTK4 apps and something old that uses GTK3, it looks so weird. It's like my pet peeve, you know.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. I know there are themes where you can like apply a limited way to look to the GTK3 apps as well. But
I use macOS like white Sewer theme, custom theme to the old GTK3 applications. It looks fine too. Yeah.
So going down the list of the top extensions, so besides Argos, which we don't know what the hell that is, second is Dash to Dock, which is understandable.
Sure.
Third, user themes. Fourth is Dash to Panel, which is in a fairly similar case to Dash to Dock.
Yeah, sort of, yeah.
I would probably use Dash to Panel myself. Like, that's my sort of style. Next is Open Weather. This adds a little weather thing into your what do you call it? Into the panel, the top bar.
Yeah.
If I need to check the weather, if I just don't want to look outside, I just open my phone. Like,
yeah.
It's not that for me. That's not that big of a deal. Then is apps menu. This is the one that adds the category-based menus for applications. Then is blur my shell, so the one to add the really nice-looking blurred backgrounds. Next is caffeine. This disables the screensaver and auto-suspend.
Yeah.
Sound input and output device choose. Wait, what?
Well, sound. Well, right now on GNOME 46, you can choose your input and output. Let me see. Yeah, I can choose what sound output and what sound input. I may choose between my webcam or my microphone. Yeah, but it wasn't existing before, I think. Or maybe it adds. Maybe it adds some optional functionality to that, extra functionality.
Yeah, it looks like that's what it does. And then the 10th one is the app tray that we mentioned before. The rest of them are like starting to become like, they're popular things, but they're not like things that everybody's going to install. You got things like GS Connect, Arc menu.
It's
removable.
It's niche within a niche, yeah.
Wait, GNOME doesn't have like a built-in thing in the bar for removable drives?
Yeah.
Why?
It does not. That's the way it is.
Okay, sure. That's one that I don't understand how it's not
feel
part
it.
of GNOME.
You need to feel it. It's not about logical solutions. You need to feel that way of using your PC. You need to feel that. You need to launch a files app and then to manipulate with your external drives. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, that's
just the way it is.
That's one that I don't like. The other ones I can see there being some debate, but like that's such a basic functionality that I don't understand how it's not there.
That's why I'm saying that I'm not the type of guy who argues about GNOME versus KDE, because there is no reasonable argument for using GNOME. It's just pure aesthetics to me.
You know what? That's fair. That's fair.
That's fair, but nevertheless, I'm using GNOME, and every video that I publish to my channel, I use GNOME in that video. So yeah, it's my cup of tea.
Yeah, no, if it works for you, absolutely keep using it. Like, I think this is something a lot of people misunderstand when I'm like critical of GNOME or critical of KDE or critical of Cosmic now. Like, I'm not calling you a bad person for using it. Like, you use whatever fits your use case. Like, it's okay. I don't have to like everything that you like.
Yeah, but we are on the internet, and so if you are criticizing what I'm using, I must get angry right now and type a lot of sorts of nasty stuff to your comments, into your comment section.
Yeah. This goes back to what we were saying earlier about like Linux being a personality trait, Linux being kind of culty in some ways. Like
but it's not exclusive to Linux. Yeah, like we have console wars raging right now. We have people arguing Android versus iPhone. We have people arguing over car brands and etc. If you invested yourself emotionally or financially into something, you will expect other people respect your choice. Otherwise, you will get angry. That's how people work, I think.
Yeah, I get it. Right. Like it's like a core human thing. Like, you're not on my team, therefore you're bad.
Yeah.
You're from the tribe over there, therefore you're an enemy.
That's it. Yeah, that's basically it.
I don't know. Like, it would be nice if people recognize when they're doing this, because a lot of people that just like, I don't know. They don't really think about the way they're acting. Like, they don't think about like, oh, is there a reason why this other person doesn't like what I'm using? Is there like some value in what they're using? Maybe there's something about the usage that I've just not really thought about. Like, a lot of people just don't think critically about their choices.
I would rather put it in a different way. I think it's a matter of self-esteem, because when you criticize GNOME, you're not criticizing my choice. You're criticizing GNOME. When you criticize KDE, you're not criticizing someone else's choice. You criticize KDE. And when people hear that someone criticizes KDE and think, well, Brody thinks I'm a bad person because I'm using this, it's a matter of self-esteem. A lot of people need to get their self-esteem high to be able to enjoy what they use. And I'm not saying that I have high self-esteem, but I enjoy using GNOME. I enjoy using whatever I use, and that's part of my Linux journey.
No, I get it, right? I do get it. It's just I wish more people thought about falling into this trap, thought about the way they're approaching things. Because I think there's a lot of people out there that just like blindly like defend things. They blindly use things. They don't really they've made this choice, and they don't really think about the choice after that. Yeah,
and copium tastes great, right?
It definitely does. Speaking of copium, have you tried Cosmic yet?
Yes, I tried into the virtual machine, and I think it's great. It's an alpha, so a lot of functionality doesn't work. I wasn't able to try App Center. I'm expecting great App Center because Kyle Rochelle said that he finds it's more efficient to update the system through the App Center, not through the command line.
Carl is the least biased person you could ever ask about.
I understand that. Yeah.
CEO of System 76.
Yeah, I get that, but I was excited to try it out, and I think it looks great. I think the theming options that they built in is great. I like the terminal. I like their Rust-based fast terminal, but I think I would rather wait for the final release to give it a proper review.
Right. Yeah, I think it's getting to a point where I am considering daily driving it, but there's a lot of issues that I'm running across that I did a 2.5 hour stream over the weekend, just going over just issues and features that I think really should be added that maybe aren't like there's obvious things they're going to be adding, like, oh, there's no user settings right now and things like that. But more like things behaving in a way that don't entirely make sense. Like right now, so in a tiling window manager, you can change like the window you have focus with your keyboard, right? And when you spawn a new window, like that window is automatically going to be given focus. Now the problem is, with the way it currently works, is it puts your cursor in the top left-hand corner of the window. So a lot of other window managers put it in the middle. So I and a lot of other people have this muscle memory of you're in the middle, so start moving upwards. But if you move upwards, you're suddenly off the window. And if there's a window behind that window is now going to take focus. So
that sucks.
It's such an easy thing to fix though. Or there's
it's a minor bug.
Or there's other things like how do you like doing your... does GNOME have options for how focus works, or do you have to click on a window to give that window focus?
I have click or press Alt-Tab to switch between windows, Okay.
On KDE, you have the option of when you move your mouse over a window, that window is automatically given focus.
GNOME has that options, but it's disabled by default, and I don't like that. I don't like focus on hover. I like to click. I like to be sure which window is active right now, because I rely on the hotkeys, and hotkeys are app dependent.
Right. Okay. Understandable. Cosmic recently added focus on hover. The problem is their focus on hover. There's right now a delay, and this is a built-in delay they added. So they added a 250 millisecond delay. So it just feels laggy because of that. And that's an easy one to fix. Like, that's literally just an integer they've set to 250. Just set it to 0, and it's fine.
Sure.
But the issue right now with how the focus works is when you hover over a window, that window is also put on top. So if you hover over a window and you move it to another window, then suddenly windows are just like randomly switching around the place, and it just it looks kind of buggy. The way KDE gets around this is you have the option of not putting the window on top. So the window gets focused, but until you click on it, it's not put on top. And this is the way that I like it. This is the way that a lot of tilers work. And I hope Cosmic gets that added as well, because that will make it that, like, the way focus works and all of this stuff like that, it's a minor thing, but
Yeah, sure.
when it's not working the way you expect, it really feels off. And it feels like there's something wrong with the desktop.
On System 76, they sell a lot of laptops, and I think the way you describe it works will be nightmarish on laptops, because if you have your finger to move around, you have to do a lot of leg work or finger work to switch between apps.
Yeah, or there's also just because they just added it like a couple of days ago. There's other random bugs. Like,
it would be fine.
I think if you move your cursor between monitors, the first window you move to is not given focus. The focus doesn't work on the other monitor. It's just a bug. So
It sounds weird.
It's definitely weird. I'm not the only person who's noticed it. I think they kind of just threw the implementation together just to have something there, but haven't really thoroughly tested it. Again, it's an alpha. That's the point of the alpha. Like, with the alpha, they're not doing any engineering testing for things. They're just, like, throwing it in there.
Yeah, and I have huge respect for System 76 for actually developing their own desktop environment and not building their system on top of existing one.
Right.
It's huge. It's huge because free software. We basically have no competition in free software. We have GNOME, which is a default option in 99% distros, big major distros. I think KDE comes on only with OpenSUSE and Manjaro, and that's it.
On big distro, there's other Arch-based things like Endeavor and things like that, but major distros. There is Fedora KDE and a Kubuntu, but like the main version of it, that's probably it.
Yeah, so the GNOME and KDE are two mainly default options for Linux enthusiasts, and to see the third option being so great and being so. Actually, it looks great. I think Cosmic looks great, and I really hope they would be able to finalize their vision into something really exciting.
Yeah. From what all of the times I've spoken with the System 76 guys and like all the bug reporting I've done, it seems like they have some good ideas and they're really receptive to feedback. Like at least so far, I've not run into any like crazy things that have just been like outright denied. I think the only thing that I disagree with on one of their directions is they don't want to have a dedicated full screen button. So they have maximize, but they don't want to add a separate one for full screen. They feel like
you have to press I think I used to press double clicks on the top bar to maximize, but you're talking not about the maximization, you talk about the full screen.
Yeah. So in the let's say in actually a good example is a web browser. So when you when you maximize a web browser, you can still see the top bar. When you full screen the top bar, yeah.
On GNOME, no, you can just press F11 and you will.
No, this is what I'm saying. That's full screening.
Yeah.
Maximize, you can still see the top bar. Full screening in a browser, it hides those elements.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, and the logic in Cosmic is apps that need full screening should have a built-in way to handle full screening. It shouldn't be up to the desktop to force them into full screen. And I understand the logic they have there. I'm curious. I'm not gamed on Cosmic, so I'm curious to see if any games behave weirdly by not having a dedicated full screen button. Because sometimes games in Proton jump out of full screen, and the only way to put them back into it is to force them in the desktop.
Yeah, and actually, I think Steam now ships with it allows you to force window to be set to certain resolution on to certain window mode. So I think they're going to be fine, but they have incentive. They're selling desktops and laptops. They have incentive to build Cosmic into something great, into something usable, and I think they're competent to do so. Yeah. I have a huge respect for System 76 for what they did with PopOS. I think Pop! OS is way better than Ubuntu for the newcomers, for those who use Linux for the first time. And I've recommended Pop! OS to, I think, 0.5% of my friends, and other friends I recommended Linux Mint because they're both great.
Right. Yeah, I think the trap a lot of people fall into with Ubuntu is if you have a new GPU and like a really new GPU and you're maybe like a year or so into an LTS, that's when you start seeing problems. Sure.
Yeah. But, well...
We disconnecting again? What is going on with Discord today? I love this program. We good?
Can you yeah, yep. we good. Yeah.
This is a mess today. I've never had Discord be this bad.
That's fine. Nothing will stop us from having great conversation. I've been saying that Linux isn't, when we're talking about LTS distros, there are lots of hardware support missing, not just GPUs. For example, I'm a camera guy. I like taking photos, and recently I bought my new camera to take photos with. And if you have an LTS distro, I think if you have Arch, by the way, you can't edit new RAW formats like RW2 from the Lumix, because they are not, the support for those RAW formats are not hasn't been added to the Darktable and RAW therapy. There is no option for that. And when you use LTS distro, I think people like to call LTS distro stable. I don't. I think they're just they're stuck in time. And the really stable distro is Arch, because Arch allows you to access new hardware and while being reliable to you.
I think Pop! OS is the best of both worlds, where you get a lot of new drivers, but like it doesn't really matter if Grub is out of date. No, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if like System D or the GNU toolkit's out. Not really. For, like the average user, it's not really a big deal. Like
sure.
And like the way that they've got it set up really is suitable for GPUs are obviously like the big thing. Yes, obviously you have like other things people care about, but there's a reason why people recommend Pop! OS specifically like for people with a gaming use case.
Yeah, and you can download it. You can download it Pop! OS with the NVIDIA drivers too, which it's actually a nightmare to explain to a newcomer how to install drivers in Fedora. And if you install Linux Mint, you have two options. You have two options to install Nouveau drivers or proprietary drivers. And when people install Linux for the first time, they have no idea what's the difference between them.
Yeah. Like the fact that I get why Fedora's like that, because they've got some licensing restrictions about why they.
Sure.
But like, if you recommend Fedora to a new user and they have NVIDIA, like they have to go and read a blog post just to have basic things functioning, and like it's just Fedora's a great distro, but it's really. Do you remember the period where there was a lot of Linux YouTubers who were like, Fedora is the new Ubuntu? It's like, no, please don't recommend it like that.
Well, it's true. I think Fedora is great, but it's not suitable for beginners. It's far from that. It deploys with vanilla GNOME, which isn't beginner friendly. It doesn't install NVIDIA drivers. It doesn't come with NVIDIA drivers, and these two problems are already they can cause a lot of psychological damage to the new user.
Yeah, the issue with GNOME, you could just recommend Fedora KDE, but if they have an NVIDIA GPU, like if they have an NVIDIA GPU, nothing's gonna save them.
True.
If they're like using a laptop that only has like an integrated Intel or AMD APU, or they've got an AMD GPU in their system,
They
it's
would
a
still
lot.
have to deal with vanilla GNOME.
Well, sure, but again, you could recommend
I
Fedora
don't think
KDE or
that-
one of the others.
Yeah, but I don't think. Well, speaking of Fedora GNOME, I'm not sure if GNOME Tweaks is pre-installed on Fedora.
Probably isn't.
It isn't pre-installed on Ubuntu. It's only pre-installed on Arch. So you have to explain to somebody who's new that they have to install a separate utility. That will turn them away from Linux.
I'm seeing videos on how to install GNOME Tweaks on Fedora, so I'm going to assume that it is not installed.
Yeah.
That's annoying.
And that's a big problem actually.
Mhm.
I rely heavily on GNOME Tweaks to set up my and it should come pre-installed.
Yeah. Again, like the fact that like it's so weird, right? Because it would be one thing if GNOME Tweaks was like doing things that shouldn't be done, but all the stuff that GNOME Tweaks does, like it's doing things
should
that's
include it in the
supported
GNOME settings.
GNOME.
Yes,
Yeah.
totally. I agree. It shouldn't be a separate application. I understand that that's the way it is. I understand that GNOME Tweaks occurred as an application way before GNOME 40. It's a legacy application, but still, we need to do something with that to make GNOME more appealing to the new audience.
Yeah. Or it's not gonna. That's the thing. It's not gonna happen.
we need to build a bridge between folks who like you were motivated enough to learn about Arch, learn about using Arch and Hyperland, and people like you, they will be motivated enough to install GNOME Tweaks and learn how to use a computer the way it is designed by the GNOME project. But a lot of newcomers, a lot of people who just bought their first laptop on Linux, who want to install Linux and forget about everything. They want to use a PC. They are interested more about PC, about photo editing, about video editing, about chatting online, about gaming on Linux. They are not interested in setting up a Linux desktop. So we need to make that process as user-friendly as possible.
Now, when people talk about this, I think the part that someone might bring up, like, oh, but it's more user-friendly than ever. Like, yes, it is. Like,
yes, it is.
If we compared things to, like, Linux in
5 years
2010
ago.
or 5 years ago, but if you want to go back even further, like, let's go back to when Ubuntu came out and Ubuntu revolutionized the Linux distro. Like, before Ubuntu, setting up Linux was considerably harder. And because Ubuntu was, like, bankrolled by Mark Shuttleworth, who was a multi-millionaire already, very, very rich guy, Ubuntu raised the bar on what a Linux distro should be and what a Linux distro could be. And it made it possible to actually sell a laptop running Linux. Now, people who bought them, they had issues, because back then there were also issues with modems that only worked on Windows. Windows modems are a fun thing, but that raised the bar. But if you look back at what Warty Warthog is now, like, it's a pain to use, right? And that's fine. It made sense in 2004, but we've improved a lot since then. And there's a lot of things that just the existence of GUIs to do a lot of things really has helped a lot of people actually find Linux more approachable.
Yeah. It did, and now we have a Steam Deck which can be used out of the box. If you want to game on Steam Deck, just use it for gaming. It's amazing. If you want to do something simple like to edit a LibreOffice file, if you want to browse a web, it's fine. But if you need to install something on it, you have to use KDE Discover, and KDE Discover isn't there yet. It's not ready to compete with the command line. It's not designed to compete, but it's not ready yet, and it's not ready yet. So we still have a work to do. But when I say we, I'm talking about the community. I'm not a developer. I never wrote a line of code in my entire life, so I don't know how to do that thing. But I have a voice. I can use my channel as a platform to point the things out, and I hope that we will get over them.
Yeah, I'm personally not a fan of any of the GUI application software installer things. Like, all of them to me are just like they just feel more annoying to use than using a terminal. But I
Yeah.
also know that I've been using the terminal for a while. I know how, like, I know what Pac-Man SYU means, right?
Yeah,
But if you're
yeah.
someone new and you tell them to run, I guess Ubuntu makes it easier, but even just saying run apt-get install some random word and this installs a thing.
Steam and it's Papa, and you're on Papa OS and you have to say yes, do as I say. Yeah.
Man, the fact that that happened at the time of the Linux challenge from LTT is wild.
Yeah, I understand that. What I'm saying is that, again, I'm a fan of CLI. I like to install apps using command line. I know that almost every Linux enthusiast love to use the command line. But if we want to build a bridge between us and newcomers, if we want to make Linux extremely popular, we need to have GUI applications like Kiri, Discover, like GNOME software, because it's our chance to liberate the desktop from Windows, from macOS, from other operating systems.
Yeah, there are a lot of people out there who are like, well, I actually don't want Linux to be more popular. I kind of like it as it is. And
yeah, I'm going to install FreeBSD if Linux become popular.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing with everything, right? Like, there's always going to be people that are like, I don't want to use the popular thing. Like, I'll use Wayland now that I'll use Wayland before it's popular, but now that it's gaining popularity, I'm going to use something else, and it's like,
it's part of Linux mentality.
I don't think it's just Linux mentality. I think you get it from everything, right? You always have people that want to find the they want to be the underdog. They want to find the diamond in the rough. They want to find the thing that nobody's using before everybody's using it.
Yeah, that's part of mentality. There are people that are enthusiasts who want to be the first ones. Because Linux isn't popular nowadays, it's part of Linux mentality. But I think that if Linux will become more popular, these underdogs, these evangelists, they will benefit from it more than ever, because they will have the system they love, system they know how to use, but they will have an advantage. They will have the knowledge that nobody ever possesses. When people nowadays buy MacBooks, a lot of people do not know how to use a CLI. A lot of people do not know how to use a terminal. But if you know how to use that, you will have an advantage. If you use, for example, AI to draw images via web page, you have one way of controlling it. If you generate images via CLI, you have other amount of control over it. So you have to be the underdog. You have to adopt it first to become an expert in this field.
That's a good way to put it, actually. I do think there are people that take it the other direction, where they are set on using, like, a good example of this is the people who use distros where the entire reason they exist is it's not systemd. It's like, okay, yeah, that's cool and all, but, like, I think a lot of people... Don't get me into a rant about why that's a dumb argument. I think a lot of people forget about systemd is stuff like OpenRC, Run It, all this stuff. The reason why it's useful today is because systemd, like with Ubuntu, it raised the bar. Like, before systemd was around, they were in a much worse state. So people can talk about, like, oh, systemd did this, systemd ruined everything, but, like, no, they had to keep up with systemd because it was just that much better, and now they're better as well. But there's just no reason to, like, go back and, like, again, I'm not going to get in the systemd rant.
Yeah, again, that's part of Linux mentality, because we have folks like Luke Smith, who were Arch Linux evangelist, who's now, I think, Ardix Linux evangelist, who is in a great sense crazy enough to daily drive that distro and to promote that distro. And one of the reasons Linux community is so popular, that we have enthusiasts who are ready to do that challenges on a regular basis. We are crazy enough to do that. Let's put it that way.
No, that's a good way to put it. I like that. These be like having people who are just, like, willing to just jump on things a bit too early. I think, it lets you see what's actually out there. Like the people who are like were daily driving Wayland, not like in 2020, but when Fedora swapped. Like Fedora swapped, I think like 10 years, 10 years ago, something ridiculous like that by default on GNOME. Wayland was not ready back then. Like you can say Wayland's not ready now, but Wayland was not ready then.
Yeah, and still people continue to use Fedora. People were happy to make bug reports. People were happy to be in the vanguard of Linux development because it's cool. It's cool to be part of something great, something big. It gives me strength, It gives me strength that I'm not just, when we talk about free software, we often talk about the community. That the community is great, and it gives me so much energy. It gives me so much power that we are the community. When you use GIMP, you use applications that were designed to help you. You're not using an application that were designed to take money away from you. It was designed for you by your not by your friend, but the people in the community who were caring about you. That's great. That's amazing, actually. And Linux is the only operating system that gives you this sense of camaraderie, of friendship, of whatever.
Well, any only like big one, like you make the argument about like OpenBSD and FreeBSD and things like that as well, but like the support on those operating systems is a lot smaller than what we have on Linux today.
Yeah, but every time I open ArchWiki to read about something, I feel that there were a person behind this who had the same problem, who learned a way to overcome it, and now he's about to teach me how to do the same way, how to do it in the same way. So that strong feeling of community actually gives you power.
Yeah, the ArchWiki gets a lot of attention. I think the one that's really underrated is the Gentoo wiki. Obviously a lot of what's on the Gentoo wiki is about like specific Gentoo compiling things. Yeah, that's sure. Yeah. But like when it comes to a lot of the other stuff, the Gentoo wiki has a lot of information that is not on Arch. Like the Gentoo wiki in some places is, you might argue, way over documented. Like if you go through the installation guide for Gentoo, there are entire sections that are like explaining like what a file system is, how file systems work. Like this doesn't need to be in your install guide. This can go somewhere else. But the information is there, and I love the Arch wiki, but I wish more people talked about some of the other wikis out there as well.
Well, I'm usually, since English is my second language, I often use ArchWiki and GentooWiki to double check if I put some sentences in the proper way, in the correct way. And when I compare them, there are articles that are more. On some topics, there are way more information on ArchWiki rather than on GentooWiki. For example, when you talk about color correction, video editing, there are lots of stuff on ArchWiki, and there are only tiny pages on the GentooWiki.
Right. No, I get that, because I guess Arch, even though Arch and Gentoo are both very minimal distros, I guess Arch has a lot more of a desktop presence than Gentoo does. Like, it seems like a lot of the Gentoo user base is more interested in like the very, I guess, low-level stuff.
Yeah, that's because you had to compile Gentoo by yourself. Now you don't have to. Now they have a binaries, but previously you had to compile it yourself. Well, when Arch, first of all, Arch is relatively easy to install, and now we have Arch install script, which makes it extremely easy. So yeah, there are a lot of people who use Arch, and it's cool to use Arch, right? I use Arch, by the way. That's the whole meme that made Arch so popular. I believe that Arch is the most impactful Linux distro of this decade. Nowadays it's way more popular than Ubuntu. It's not cool to use Ubuntu anymore. I remember that there is a Liam Doe article on the gamingonlinux.com who said that Ubuntu was too. He said, I don't remember how he put it this way. He said like Ubuntu was not too standard, but there were no danger in it to use Ubuntu. It was too normal to use it. I don't remember the exact quote, but it felt Ubuntu or Mint. It didn't felt write to him to use, because Arch is the vanguard. Arch is the frontier of Linux, sort of.
Right.
So yeah.
I don't think Arch is more popular than Ubuntu, but it certainly gets talked about a lot more, right?
We can check the maybe it's not more popular because of the servers that use Ubuntu, but we can open Steam hardware stats.
Sure.
And look
yeah.
what people use. And the first one distro would be, I think, SteamOS ISO, SteamOS 3.7, I guess, or SteamOS 3.6.
I've seen the numbers. Linux. I know what you're talking about. The number. Okay. The way that Steam counts the numbers is a little bit funky.
Yeah, it's true.
So, yes, Arch is popular, but the reason why it's not exactly correct is it counts different versions of Ubuntu as different entries.
True, that's true. You can calculate them together and get the proper result. Yeah.
You have 2204 on 0.7%, 0.07%, 2404 on 0.07%, and then 22 core? I don't know. Oh, that might be the snap. What is that? Ubuntu Core 22. What the hell is that?
Steam is a little bit weird when it comes to stats, but we can say that Ubuntu is extremely popular. Ubuntu comes pre-installed with some laptops. A lot of people use Ubuntu as a default option, and yet Arch Linux somehow is the most popular option out there, or maybe the first one if we count it properly.
I think it might be second. Because they only show the top.
It might be second.
Because Mint's also it's either Mint or Arch in second.
Yeah, and the fact that Mint is also based off Ubuntu kind of implies that Ubuntu is way more popular than we would think. But nevertheless, Arch Linux isn't that user-friendly as Mint or Ubuntu, and yet it has the majority. That's fascinating. I think that's because using Arch Linux is cool as a meme. I think that memes got us to this place.
You know what? You might be onto something there. I think you might be correct.
When you open Reddit, r/Linux memes or Linux master race, there are a lot of people who use Arch, by the way. And you have a lot of talented Linux YouTubers like Luke Smith, who promoted Arch Linux through the years. DistroTube, I think, daily drives Arch Linux. A lot of people daily drives Arch Linux. So, yeah, it's kind of default option. It's kind of a cool kid Linux distro, sort of.
The other thing that really skews the numbers is I'm looking at now. If you don't count the numbers together, the second biggest option is the Flatpak. So we don't actually know what people are running the Flatpak on.
Yeah, that's weird. It's called Free Desktop something.
Yeah, Free Desktop STK 2308.
Yeah.
So that could be Arch, that could be Ubuntu. We don't actually know.
Yeah, but correct me if I'm wrong. Steam on SteamOS on Steam Deck is installed via Flatpak as a Flatpak package, and yet it calculates SteamOS as a different is a different distro. So
I don't know if it's a Flatpak on. Is it? No, it's not a Flatpak. The Flatpak isn't officially supported. No. No, the Flatpak is recommended over the Snap, but the Flatpak isn't official. There's a couple of
No. I mean, if you use Steam Deck, how Steam application is installed on Steam Deck? Is it a Flatpak package?
No, it's not a Flatpak. No.
Yeah. It's a Pacman package. How Steam is packaged on the Steam Deck? I don't know the answer.
I actually don't. Well, I know it's not a Flatpak. It's built directly into the ISO.
Maybe it's a Pacman package.
I don't think it's the package that comes from Arch. I think it's their own custom package.
No. It's definitely their own custom package. But what package manager they use to build it?
Well, it's probably built with if it's being built into the image, it would be installed through Pacman then.
Yeah, cool. That's cool.
But the Steam Deck is obviously the most popular out of the ways to play games on Linux by far.
Yeah. I wonder why.
Oh, crazy. The Steam Deck has done a lot of really positive things for Linux gaming.
It's true.
Not even just like making it better, but just showing people that you can. Showing people that gaming on Linux actually is possible. Because I remember you're mentioning SteamOS before. I remember when that got announced, and there was like a list of 15, 20 games. It was like, I think Shadow of Mordor had a Linux port.
Saints Row 3, CS:GO, and Dota 2, I think, and maybe 5 or 10 more.
Yeah, I think TF2 had a port as well. Pretty much everything.
TF2, yeah, sure.
And like Half-Life.
Left 4 Dead 2.
Pretty much everything that Valve does has had a port for a long time.
Yeah.
But outside of that, the list was very short. And then when Proton got announced, the list then was also very short. Do you know a fun part of the history of Proton? The reason why
it was developed by the Nier Automata.
Yeah, so the guy who made DXVK,
that's great. Yeah.
He made DXVK because he wanted to play Nier Automata on Linux, which is just...
That's amazing. Actually, we have to say what's great about Valve, that they find talents who made things work by themselves, as they did with Dota 2, with CS. CS was a mod to Half-Life, and the same goes with the Nier Automata guy who made this game playable on Linux by himself, and they hired him to develop a Proton. That's actually a great way to build a company, to hire people.
But what I was getting at there was SteamOS came out. It told people about Linux gaming being a thing, but they didn't have Proton yet. Proton came out. It had like a list of like 9 games or something that was supported.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is cool. I knew about Wine before that point because I'd used a Mac, and if you wanted to play like Halo on a Mac, there were things like that you would sometimes run through Wine. Actually, maybe not Halo. I think Halo had a native version. Regardless, Wine exists on Mac as well, and especially back in the early 2010s was a lot more popular than it is now. And then I kind of just like stopped paying attention to Linux for a long time. Then when I got interested again back in 2019, 2020, Proton was a very different landscape then. Yes, there were a lot of games that still weren't supported. There was a lot of balked games. Anti-cheat support was just not really a thing then.
Yeah.
Then the Steam Deck came out, and we were in a way better state then. Anti-cheat started getting supported. The list of balked games is very, very short. Now, most of the balked games are just like
multiplayer games or
pretty much
games that use some weird engine. Yeah.
It showed people that gaming on Linux actually was possible now, and not just was possible, gave them an easy way to try it.
Yeah, and what's crazy about the Steam Deck is that you can install Windows on it, and Windows experience is nowhere as good as Linux experience by default, which you have by default, which is amazing. You actually have the benchmark to test how different operating system works in this when you have extremely limited resource to do so.
I'm looking at ProtonDB right now. Of the top 1,000 games, 35 are marked as balked.
That's not big of a deal, right? Well, of course, it's a Call of Duty, it's a Rainbow Six Siege, it's the biggest multiplayer titles that you have, but nevertheless, the great fact about old games that you can spend tens of or maybe hundreds of hours playing them, and if you love The Witcher 3, if you love old RPGs like Arcanum, I think Arcanum works on Linux nowadays. If you like old strategies of old times, you can pour hundreds and hundreds of hours playing great games on Linux right now. Of course, we still don't have Call of Duty, we still don't have Rainbow Six Siege, we still don't have Destiny, but those are multiplayer franchises that I think we have to wait a couple of years until they will be available on Linux too. I'm extremely optimistic about that. The great thing about Proton is that it's not only help Linux to get better at games. Other developers also use it. I think Apple with gaming porting toolkit, they also use Wine to port modern video games to iPhones, to MacBooks and iPads. Nowadays you can play Resident Evil Village or Assassin's Creed Mirage on your iPhone. That's crazy, and that's possible because Wine came a long way from the from the old era to modern days. Let's put it that way.
I was just scrolling through the list, and apparently you can get Wallpaper Engine running on Linux now.
Yeah.
That's cool, sure. And there's also a KDE plugin that integrates with it. Which I think is really cool.
That's sick. The great thing about Steam that is also bringing modding to the games, to gaming on Linux. Because before that, if you want to use a separate launcher to modify your games, you had to use Windows. Nowadays, you can install mods from Steam Workshop to your Skyrim to I think Team Fortress 2 also, to a lot of games. So it's getting Steam. Valve did a lot of things right, and I'm extremely happy that we have them on our side. When Gabe in 2014 said that Linux is the future of gaming, it was like it was the moment that made me shiver. You know.
You mentioned mods there.
Yeah.
Nexus is working on. They've been working on it for a while. A native supported mod manager. I've not tested it because all the games I mod are pretty easy to mod.
Me neither.
Like what? Pretty much the only game I've got modded right now is like Monster Hunter World, and a couple of Yakuza games. And all you do for those ones is extract the files, put them in this one location, and it's done. So I don't really need to worry about it. Yeah. But some games are a lot more complex to mod, and a mod manager for those would be very, very useful.
True. And the one more thing that Linux is missing, the gaming on Linux is missing, is I think trainers. Because modern games, especially the AAA titles, a lot of them have grind schemes built into them. So you would rather pay them in a microtransaction to help you get through the certain grind walls, I would say. Like Assassin's Creed is the great example. They have a lot of microtransactions built into a single player game, and the only way to pass through them is to use a trainer. And I think a lot of trainers nowadays are built only for Windows. You have to use third-party utilities to make them work, and it's not an easy process to do. Yeah, it's definitely not an easy process to do on a Steam Deck. So yeah, that's one thing that we're missing right now.
I don't even remember the last time I used a trainer in a game. Like I don't tend to play super grindy games that are like boring to grind, so it's not really a concern for me.
Yeah, but I do remember that I was playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I think I was extremely I was immersed into the beautiful world of ancient Greece. I wanted to know what's the end of the story, but I couldn't help myself. I couldn't pass the grind wall. It was too daunting to me. And I've installed Trainer. I've changed my stats. I changed my values of the golds and other resources, and boom, I'm done.
Yeah, that's fair. As I said, I just don't tend to play games that are like not fun to grind. And it's not a problem then. If you just don't play those games, just play different games.
Yeah, that's true. That's true also.
I say this, but then I grinded out one fight in Monster Hunter World for like 12 hours, so maybe...
yeah, well...
One singular drop that has a 1% drop rate.
Yeah, the thing with grind, that not every game do grind in a... It's easy to make grind in a wrong way.
Right,
It's easy to make grind horrible and unpleasant and etc. A lot of games, including live service like Destiny, like The Witcher 3, they done grind right. There is no grind walls in The Witcher 3. You have to obtain new gear. You have to progress through the system, through the game. You have to build a better Witcher to be able to play the game, but it's not daunting to do so. But some games, they have fine narrative, they have great dialogues, they have beautiful world that you want to immerse yourself into, but they have those nasty grind walls that you want to pass through.
Right, a lot of games that
sometimes I use
a lot. Sorry, get you off there. But I was gonna say, especially single player games that have time locked content, where it's like, hey, wait 30 minutes for this thing to happen. Like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah. And sometimes the trainers are not fun to use because you have to you disable all challenges you have in the game. The game is fun because they have challenges in them. You have to beat the boss. You have to be the most skilled player to sometimes to build them to complete them. But at the same time, sometimes it's so extremely painful to beat them as they were designed. So you have to help yourself by launching a trainer. Like think of the poor Dark Souls clone. Like Sekiro is extremely fun game to beat yourself. The Dark Souls is extremely fun game to overcome it yourself. But think of Elden Ring, and Elden Ring, especially the last DLC, Shadow of the Earth 3, the bosses are so thick. They have so much HP on them, so it's getting less and less fun to me to play those games.
Right.
And one way of completing them without losing your mind is to use trainers.
Oh, that's fair. I don't know. I haven't words. I need to get around to playing Elden Ring, so I can't really comment on how dumb things might get, especially in the DLC. I've heard some people complain about it though.
Yeah, it's not dumb. I mean, when you're making the really tough game to play, when you're making something challenging, when you're making something extremely difficult to play, you have only two options. You can either make timings even shorter. You can make challenge by making skill sets, move sets are way more complex, or you can make HP bars just bigger.
Sure.
And it seems that the way I think about it is that From Software has no other option to make game even harder right now other than making HP bars even bigger.
Right. No, that's fair. And I guess that might be part of the reason why they're looking on from just doing another, like, Elden Ring is sort of the pinnacle of the Souls-like.
Yeah.
And my understanding, and from interviews that they've had, they don't want to make another game like that, at least as their next game.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we're going to see another Armored Core game, or they're going to do something else entirely, or what the direction's going to be.
Yeah.
But I can understand that,
to
right?
But to me, the best game they've made is Sekiro. Sekiro is extremely great because it relies. You have to rely on parry to beat the game, and when you sometimes it's tough to learn. Sometimes it's tough to learn timings and get used to different enemies. But when you beat the game, when you actually beat the final boss, it's so energizing. It's so full of adrenaline. It's great. I've been seeing you streaming Sekiro, and it was quite an experience.
6 hours. What was it? 6 hours in the final boss, and we finally beat it. Holy shit! That boss. Oh my god.
That was
Sekiro's very fun though. I do love Sekiro.
Yeah.
For as tilted as it makes me, as angry as I get playing that game, I love it.
Yeah, that's true.
I need to go. I do need to actually go and play Elden Ring though. Like, it's just a long game. That's the other thing. It's just really long.
It's a long game, and it's an open world, so you have to. You can easily ruin your playthrough because you went to the wrong way and you have no stats or no items to go further. You have to go back and find a new way, and sometimes it's just too wasteful when you think about your personal time. Sekiro, on the other hand, is a linear game. You have linear levels which you can go through in a pace you prefer, and it's more dynamic. It's more fun to play, I think.
Right. Well, there's a couple of places where you have like an option of, oh, you want to go here, you want to go here, but like for the most part, like the main through line of the story,
linear. Yeah.
Like you have to hit you get to a point where you have to go and beat the next like main story boss because things won't open up further. Yeah.
And when it comes to Sekiro, you cannot you cannot farm your stats by endlessly killing enemies. On an Elden Ring, you can grind your way into the top by grinding enemies, making more and more XP, and building a better character. But on Sekiro, you have to learn timings to complete the game.
Yeah, you don't outstat things in Sekiro. If in
true.
like most of the mainline Souls games, you can just find the big, like the Havel's armor or other big tanky armor and just grab a big shield and just poke people with a lance, and you'll get through the content if you really want to do it like that.
True.
But no, I think Sekiro is very fun. I think more people do need to go and try that out. I need to go play some of the other like Souls-like games that are kind of inspired by Sekiro, like Neo and things like that, and Ghost of Tsushima.
I would recommend to you Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima has a lethal mode. Lethal mode, it's not as tough as Sekiro, but the combat is very aggressive. You have to be fast. You have to learn timings too. And the only downside of lethal mode is that there are few bosses, like the first boss, Rizo, I don't remember how it pronounced correctly. He can one-shot you with one attack, and you have to grind through a really long health bar to kill them. Yeah, but the game is great. You should try it.
Yeah, I've got a copy of it on my shelf back there.
Oh, have you tried it?
No, I haven't tried it yet.
And it works great on Steam Deck too, by the way.
Nice. Yeah, I bought a PS4 copy of it ages back. It's just I've not had time to play it. Like, there's only so much time in the day. There's only so much time in the week.
Yeah. That's a problem. I want to say that the story of the Ghost of Tsushima is fine. There are 3 acts in the game. The second act is full of filler quests. You have to go there and follow this NPC and look over that place. But the first act and the third act and the epilogue, they are so intense. They are so they done very well. It's very cinematic game, and it's full of great moments when you kind of feel yourself like a samurai of sorts. The way they animated Jin Sakai, the main hero, he's so aggressive when he swings so fast, and it gives you a lot of cool moments to be happy about.
That definitely does sound fun. I'm gonna have to get to that eventually. Right now I'm doing Black Myth Wukong on stream, and I'm very much enjoying it. The game has issues. There's a lot of weird graphical issues as well. Like, I noticed this one bit where as you walk in and out this cave entrance, I guess the lighting for some reason is different when you're in the cave than when you're out of the cave. So there's like one spot you can go back and forth on, and the light just flickers back and forth.
Yeah. Well, I haven't tried Black Myth Wukong yet. I've heard a lot of great things about this game, and I'm pretty interested in that game because there are not so many video games set in the Chinese fantasy world. Yeah, but I haven't tried it yet.
Yeah, I think there's already a sequel that's been like confirmed to be worked on, and like they want to do like a expansion for the game as well. So obviously the game was very successful, but it seems like they want to do more with the world as well, which I'm excited to see.
I'm excited too because, well, I think there is only one game aside from Black Myth Wukong published on Steam by that studio, and it's still in early access. So I can't wait to see the studio making new games, even more ambitious, even more bigger games.
Yeah, it's kind of wild to see a company that before this, like, they had been they're one of the companies that has been involved in, like, making mobile games and things like that, and like they out of nowhere they're like, hey, let's make a AAA quality action RPG. It's like, and it's not
which
just
sounds suspicious.
Yeah, like, what do you remember when the trailer for Black Myth came out? Like years ago, when the PS4 was announced.
2 or 3 years ago. Yeah.
Was it? No, maybe it was
PS4.
No, I think maybe you're right. Maybe it's not
later.
as far as I thought. Maybe it's 4.
Yeah.
I feel it was before the PS5 came out. Whatever.
Yeah, sure.
It was definitely a long time ago. Maybe my sense of time is completely messed up. It probably is.
Yeah, PS4 was 10 years ago. The PS4 launch was in 2013 or 14, I guess.
Yeah, no, you're
PS5
definitely
was
closer to right then. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing that I remember about the Black Myth announcement is that it felt like it was one of the first next gen games. We didn't get too many next gen games in this generation, actually.
when I saw it, it felt like a tech demo. Because
it does.
The first one they showed off was like walking through the snow, and like it was, you've seen those like Unreal Engine tech demos before where they're like, oh, here's like when Unreal Engine 3 or 4 came out, the games didn't look that good. It took a long time for developers to get used to using the engine, but the game came out and it's like, oh yeah, it actually does look that good. Like, okay, sure, okay.
Yeah, that's a miracle that they were that they pulled the whole game and made it successful, because as I see it, it's game development is really hard. It takes multiple years, and you have to envision the whole game. When some artists just make 3D models or the combat, it really takes a lot to make a great game. And the fact that they were able to achieve that vision and they made it successful it's really great.
Yeah, for sure. And the fact that the game, like, it didn't just look good, it actually played well as well. Like, that's the thing, right? There's a lot of games out there that look incredible, but they're just not fun to play. And that's, like, I think a lot of developers sort of miss the mark on that. Like, they make these games where it's like whenever I see a trailer, it's like, hey, let's talk about the tongue physics for like 3 minutes. Like, Can we talk about maybe the game? I don't care like how well the faces are animated or the fact that you have the wind physics on the eyelashes. Like,
but when I was a kid and Half-Life 2 came out, everyone was talking about the physics engine and the fact that you can pick any object and put it somewhere. It was captivating because when I was a kid, I was excited not about the game, not about the story. I was excited about that we can simulate a real world in the video game. Of course, nowadays, we don't expect games to simulate the real world, but the fact that we have even more advanced facial animations or some sort of weird things going behind the scenes, happening behind the scenes, that's really great. To me, nowadays it seems that every game looks great. It seems that every game plays more or less great. So when I going through my shopping list, I often focus. I'm often focusing on the bad reviews, negative reviews, because I'm not looking for the game that is rated that has 90% positive reviews, but I'm trying to avoid the game that scratches my pet peeves,
right?
Because sometimes game is great, it has great visual, it has great combat, it has great characters, but it has it has a lot of grind walls, or it has some sort of launches attached to it, so it's sort of, you're like, I wish to play this great game, but I'm gonna skip this one.
Right. No, that makes sense. Because, like, unless the game is exceptionally bad and, like, it's got, like, overwhelmingly negative, like, even if a game is highly rated, it might not be the kind of game that appeals to you. Like, a game for me, like Death Stranding. That Death Stranding does not look interesting at all to me.
It's a great game.
I'm sure it is. And people have told me it's a great game.
But the thing about Death Stranding is that it gives you completely new experience, because you have to make routes, you have to plan the whole trip. In this game, you play as a sort of internet provider, courier, and a special delivery guy who delivers gear through the extremely dangerous environment, extremely hazardous environment, and you have to plan the whole trip. You have to plan the equipment that you plan to use. You have to go through again and again until you will be able to crack through the whole trip that you've planned. That can take 20 minutes or 30 minutes to go on. And the fact that this game gives you a proper challenge, it's extremely great. It's extremely great game that is. I'm not going to play this second time, but for the first time, it was an experience. It definitely was an experience. It's like playing the first Dark Souls for the first time.
Right. Yeah, actually, you know what? Look, maybe I'll play it at some point. Maybe I'll grab it on sale or something. I don't know. But no,
Yeah, you should at least give it a try, and if you dislike it, you can just skip it.
Yeah, that's true. But you mentioned playing Dark Souls for the first time. Like the first time I played Dark Souls, holy shit! Like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, that is an experience.
That was the experience. Yeah, yeah. You have to realize how to deal with the first boss.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you don't have YouTube guides. You don't have anything to do that. It's just you and the boss in front of you. And that thing provides you a similar experience if you don't open the YouTube.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a mistake a lot of people do, like wiki gaming or like meta gaming everything. It's like like Black Myth, you go back to Black Myth, right? The day the game came out, like day after that, there's like how to beat this boss, the perfect setup, the perfect set of abilities. Like no, like, there are games where I do that with, like Path of Exile, for example, because Path of Exile is a game where...
different type of a game.
Yeah, like, you can be a person who focuses on making builds, and that's the only thing you do, because the build system is that complex. But because there is this complexity across the entire game, I think in a case like that, it kind of makes sense to outsource certain parts of it. But in a game like... Black Myth or Sekiro, where like the build system's pretty straightforward. You don't need to look a guide for like the perfect build.
Yeah, you have to experience it yourself because Path of Exile is a live service game. It's sort of designed to have a community. It's sort of designed to people have a discussion what gear is the best. But Sekiro, you have to experience it yourself. You definitely have to experience it yourself because it's not fun if you have a certain guide that helps you how to defeat a boss, because the whole point of this game is to overcome yourself, is to overcome the challenge and beat the boss.
I do think there's fun in like doing that for a second playthrough. Like you go through definitely. Like you gotta look at a guide for Elden Ring, for example, on like how do I like some of the boss one-shot builds. Where you just use a single spell and the boss just explodes.
Yeah, that's actually also a fun way to play a game. When I replay The Witcher 3, I already know what's going to happen next. I already know where is the top armor is located, so I'm sort of speedrunning the game just to experience the best cutscenes, the best emotional, intense moments in the game. Yeah.
I think the only problem with doing it with something like Elden Ring is this is a problem that a lot of people actually have with it. It's just so long. Like you can you can do a Dark Souls playthrough in a couple of hours. Like it's not that difficult really. But like Elden Ring, it's time consuming. And that's a big part of the reason why PvP was not as popular in Elden Ring either. Because if you want a PvP at a certain soul level, you need to get back to that soul level, and you need to like get back to an area where people are going to be at that soul level, and it's just
true.
Now I've never been much of a PvP guy myself, so for me it's not a big deal. I also don't really tend to replay games. Like there's only very few games out there where I really feel like a desire to replay them.
That's interesting because I have my favorite games that I try to replay like once every 2 or 3 years, but it's like 10 games on this list. It's like Skyrim. I launch Skyrim almost every year. Red Dead Redemption 2 is I try to replay it 3 times. I only beat it once, but I try to replay it 3 times. The Witcher 3, I think I completed this game 3 or 4 times already. Yeah, and Oblivion, The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion is on the list too, but when it comes to PvP games, I prefer to play something like Battlefield, but Battlefield 1 is no longer playable on Linux as well.
Yep.
And that brings us to the different topic, because while gaming on Linux is getting better and better over the years, it also can get extremely broken in a matter of seconds, because it seems that publishers are not interested in Linux yet. Yeah,
like when like in the past, League, for example, used to work perfectly on Linux. Yeah, and then they're like, well, now it's time to do what do you call it? The
Epic Games exclusivity, or sort of.
No, what is the anti-cheat they use? I'm blanking on it.
You're talking about League of Legends. Yeah. Riot Vanguard.
Vanguard. Yes.
I've been
Yeah.
thinking you were talking about Rocket League.
Oh, yeah, Rocket League's also had its own.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's also had the same path.
Well, Rocket League used to have a native Linux version, and then they stopped updating the native Linux version, so you couldn't
Yeah.
play it because you couldn't connect to servers. So then you had to play the
Yes.
Proton version, and
Screw Epics. Screw Epic Games.
yeah, but the shooter issue is a lot bigger of a problem because
Yeah.
these are right now just the more popular, like, online games. If I don't play them, and it's not been a thing that I've been interested in a long time, but that has been a reason I've heard a lot of people not try out Linux. Like, I know people that play like a lot of Rainbow Six Siege, for example, and they can't do that, and yeah, or they're like big on Warzone.
Yeah, the thing about Rainbow Six and Warzone is that it's live service game, so you have to grind your battle pass. You have to come again months and months after. You have to continue playing these games in order to enjoy them. And for many of us, games like Apex Legends are the way to connect with friends. We just after the work, you have to you go into the game, you connect with your friends, and you just playing it. But the reason I was talking about Battlefield 1, because Battlefield 1, it's 8 years old game. It has no microtransactions. It actually has microtransactions, but there is no pay to win mechanics built into the game, and it was really fun game to play. It was a game that I was playing 8 years ago. I found it exciting, and I'm mad that I cannot play it right now on Linux. If I want to play Battlefield 1, I have to install Windows as a dual boot. But that's
right.
That's a bad way to use your PC. Not a bad way. I'm not judging anyone, but it's not a perfect way either.
The last time I played a Battlefield game was Battlefield 3.
Oh, what a great game!
Yeah,
Battlefield 3, from Battlefield 3 to Battlefield 1, every game is great.
I think part of the reason why I don't do shooters now is, like, the landscape of shooters has really changed. Like, back then, you would join lobbies, and there were people who I don't know if they had above a 50 IQ. Like, I don't know what they were doing. I don't have any idea how they joined the match, but they were just doing things that didn't make any sense. But now it seems like a lot of people... It seems like everybody's trying to be in an esports team. Every lobby is like people tryharding, and it's just... I just don't want to play that.
Yeah, that's true. That's why I hate playing CS2 or Rainbow Six Siege. Rainbow Six Siege isn't available on Linux, but CS2, everyone is mad at you if you don't buy the right thing, if you don't play the way they want you to play, and they don't communicate to you the way they want you to play. It's always a sort of the people always screams at you out of nowhere. But the reason why we have this situation is, I think, because of YouTube. Because nowadays every game has a community. Every game has YouTubers who explain how to play the game, how to play the objective. So that's why people are getting more and more competitive. And also part of this problem is that I'm getting older and older. I no longer have this reaction.
Right. Yeah.
I no longer have this intention to play games as an esport guy. I'm just came after the work. I want to relax. I want to kill some people online and go on with my life. So yeah, that's why I'm trying to play older games like Battlefield 1, for example. And it's not available in Linux anymore. The only option in the Battlefield series is Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 right now.
Yeah, I think that's a kind of part of the reason why Helldivers 2 was really fun off launch.
Yeah.
Because at the launch, people were not really serious about it. Like, they were like, hey, if you want to run some stupid setup, if you die 5 times, like, whatever, who really cares? Like, the first match literally the first match I joined was some, like, 30-year-old dude that had his kid screaming in the background. It's like, this is what I expected. But as the game's gone on and people have gotten used to things, like the meta gaming's come out, especially if playing the harder difficulties, people like expect you to play a certain way, and I just don't want to do that.
Yeah, the last time I was playing Helldivers 2 was a month ago. I was playing it on Steam Deck to gather some footages of Steam Deck playing Helldivers 2. But the last time I was really playing Helldivers 2 was, I think, in May or April. Yeah, so some games are great only months or two after they were released, especially when it comes to multiplayer games. Like it also works with Call of Duty because the first 1 or 2 months they have no microtransaction, they have no DLC, season passes, and then years later you have all sorts of microtransactions pile up upon you, and you have no other option but to either you have to buy it or you have to try hard to overcome the challenge.
Yeah, all the games that I play, if they have microtransactions, they're things I just don't really care about. Or like a game like Path of Exile. Path of Exile, people don't talk about the microtransactions of this game, but it has so much, tons, but literally none of it matters to the game. It's all just cosmetics. Like there is a $500 pack that you can buy. People don't care about it though because they like the game. There is only one pay-to-win aspect in Path of Exile, and it's a one-off cost. You buy premium tabs for your stash, for your bank, that let you store items in a more convenient way. And and it also lets you trade on the market, on the auction house. That is the only pay-to-win aspect, but it's like $80 once off, and you never pay it again.
Yeah. Aside from pay-to-win, I think in a sort of way, it's a shame that we say that microtransaction doesn't matter because if they didn't matter at all, people wouldn't buy them for the amount of $20, $50, $500 because of course they matter. Of course, cosmetics in video games are matter. That people want to express themselves. People want to. When I hear that it's
cosmetics
just a cosmetic,
are the end game.
Yeah. It's just a cosmetic. It's just an option. You don't have to buy that. Yes, it's a cosmetic. A lot of people want to express themselves, and that's why a skin in the game could cost like $15, $20, $50 because people want to have cosmetics. They really want to pay for them.
In Path of Exile, it's less of a big deal because you can't zoom in enough to see your character nicely anyway. But in a game where you can, that's true. Like in a lot of MMOs, the real end game and the most hardcore players, like in Final Fantasy XIV, for example, the people who are running like the top end content and they're running every bit of content, they are running it because they are trying to get the glamour. They are trying to get the cosmetics.
Of course. And because you have friends you're playing with, you have to be competitive with your friends. Hey, didn't you know I've grinded this weapon or this armor? I'm a cool guy now. You have to the social part of the game. They kind of incentivize people to buy or to grind new stuff.
Yeah. I think, when it comes to the social stuff, like, this is a part of the reason why I just don't really play MMOs anymore. I played MMOs back when people used them as basically chat rooms. But now a lot of the conversations moved out of the game, and it's in, like, Discord and stuff like that. So you go into, like, Final Fantasy XIV, you go into the hub town, and there's nobody talking.
Yeah, that's really a problem because back in the day you had guild chat in World of Warcraft in a lot of other MMOs.
I played a lot of RuneScape back then, which had the same thing.
When I was at high school, I hadn't money for the World of Warcraft, so I played Chinese Perfect World game. It's an MMO from China, yeah. It was free to play, but I was a kid. It was fine for me. And later on, when I moved to Elder Scrolls Online and Destiny 2, there were no guild chats as we had it during my high school. So there were no real world communication with people when you have to organize the whole guild to take part in the event or to take down the world boss, let's say.
Yeah. And not even just guild chat, just like general world chat. Like you're just going through the world and there's just like in RuneScape.
F you.
Yeah, well, RuneScape was a bit nicer than that. But like you'd be at like some fishing spot and there's some other dude there, and you was like, "Hey, fishing level," and that just like starts up a conversation like, "Oh, Or like what are you aiming for?
Yeah,
Like
sure.
what are you farming out here? Like all of this sort of stuff. And there were so many people I met during those days,
Yeah.
but it's much harder to. I don't know if it's harder or just different, right? I just don't like change. I'm sure you can get used to it and talk to people in Discord. It's the same experience, but I don't know. There's something.
It's not the same.
Yeah, there's something weird about, or there's something different about just being in the world, and you see some dude who's like grinding. He's like max level, and he's grinding out some frogs. And you're like, what are you doing? Can you explain to me what you're doing right now?
Yeah. Yeah, that was part of the fun of the old games. But there is a first-person shooter called Insurgency that has, as well as Tarkov, I think, that has local voice chat. So you can go closer to your enemy and you can scream at them. You can warn them of something, or you can just being like into the voice chat. And
local voice chat's awesome.
Yeah, it's an awesome feature, and there is no local voice chat in the AAA games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We got sidetracked very hard, didn't we?
Yeah, but that's great.
Well, we're coming up on the 2 hour mark, back to Linux. So
it's fine. I have 1 hour more if you want to.
I have some stuff to do after this, so we kind of got to wrap it up.
All right, let's wrap it up. That's fine. That's completely fine.
We didn't even talk about a lot of the things I have on the list. We just kind of like rambled about Linux and stuff, which is fine. That's exactly what
we can plan the second date and continue our conversation. I was extremely happy to have a chat with you.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
so
it was nice.
Sorry, I keep cutting you off. The delay on Discord it's always annoying to work with.
Yeah, that's completely fine.
So let people know where they can find your channel and all the stuff that you do.
You can find me. A lot of people know me as a host of the Reluctant Anarchist YouTube channel. I also write about tech for the Russian-speaking website wilsa.com. And I also have a Telegram channel right now, which goes by the same name, Reluctant Anarchist. Feel free to subscribe. I would be happy to see you.
Awesome. Nothing else you want to direct people to, or is that... Oh, when are you thinking of releasing that video that you have planned, or you're not really sure just yet?
I'm aiming closer to the September 19. To the September 19. I still have some things to iron out, but yeah, I hope it will come out in September.
Awesome. I will.
Let's get fingers crossed.
I'll definitely check it out when it comes out, and I'll direct people towards it when it does.
Thank you. Thank you.
So as for my stuff, my main channel is Brody Robertson. I do Linux videos there 6-ish days a week. I've got the gaming channel, Brody on Games. Right now, I'm playing through Black Myth Wukong and probably still doing Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. I've got the React channel where just random clips go up to. If you want to check that out, that is Brody Robertson Reacts. And if you're listening to the audio version of this, you can find the video version on YouTube at Tech Over Tea. If you want to find the audio version, there is an RSS feed. It'll be on most of the podcast apps out there. Check it out. Search Tech Over Tea and you will find it. I'll give you the final word. What do you want to say?
Let's end this video with my classical end phrase. This was Reluctant Anarchist, and I have nothing left to say.
Perfect.